Hey guys, it's Joe Madden here. This is Pocket with Joe. I'm joined this afternoon by Andy MacNeil of VSiN. Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Joe. Glad to be here.
I am so excited. Hockey season is right around the corner. October 7th, we kick off the regular season. Preseason's here, but like we were talking before, neither of us really betting it.
Yeah, I mean it's a great thing to get in on. Especially if you're a recreational bettor, you can get some big edges in the preseason. But as I've kind of said in the past, it used to be a big part of my repertoire. But in the last few years, I do so much work over the summer. Now that I'm part of this kind of media family here, it's a time that I like to try to relax a little bit because it's my last time to relax before the real thing really kicks off. So no, I haven't dabbled in preseason hockey yet, but don't stick your nose up at those who do.
Yeah, absolutely can't do that. Now, there was so many trades during this offseason. Is there one that really sticks out in your head, Andy?
Well, of course, the Calgary, everything that happened in Calgary this summer with Johnny Gaudreau leaving to sign with the Columbus Blue Jackets, Matthew Tkachuk telling the Flames that he wanted out, and the subsequent trade that took place where the Flames managed to land Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar. So obviously that was the big one, but it was a wild summer, and of course, aside from trades, there were a lot of interesting signings. You look at what the Ottawa Senators did, bringing in Claude Giroux, and they also traded for Alex DeBrincat. So just a lot to go over this summer for sure.
Yeah, I tell you, it was heart-wrenching as a Calgary Flames fan when Johnny Hockey left us and then Tkachuk following right after. I didn't think I was going to get back up off the floor, but looking at the new team, getting Huberdeau, getting Weber here, I think we've got a solid team. I think we've got a better team. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the Flames were one of the best teams in the NHL last season in many ways. They were a great defensive team. They had great goaltending from Jacob Markstrom after a pretty forgettable first season in Calgary. But their scoring was pretty much anchored by that top line: Elias Lindholm, Johnny Gaudreau, and Matthew Tkachuk. Gaudreau and Tkachuk specifically accounted for about 30%, almost 30% of the Calgary Flames goals last season. So, losing those two players, they went from being a top team in the division to being a non-playoff team, really, in just a few short days. But Brad Treliving turned it around. I think that you're right when you say the Flames are a better team. I think they have a more balanced attack now. Huberdeau is capable of driving his own line. They can stick him on the top line with Lindholm and a player like Tyler Toffoli, and stick Nazem Kadri down on the second line, Mikael Backlund down on the third line. It's a deep team, and I think it might be tough to replicate their offensive output from last season. I believe they scored around 3.65 goals on a per 60 minutes. Only a handful of teams scored more goals than the Flames did, but this is like you said, a really solid hockey team. A lot of good things here. Their structure is great under head coach Daryl Sutter, and that shouldn't change. And maybe Huberdeau, who's a player that it doesn't exactly have a great defensive game. Maybe he can improve in that regard, and also continue to produce points like he has in the past. Obviously, it might be tough to top last season, 115 points in Florida. Top 3 in the league in scoring. Would have been a Hart Trophy candidate if not for the fact that Austin Matthews became the first player since 2012 to score 60 goals, and Igor Shesterkin did what he did. But with Huberdeau, putting up the points that he did, I think Flames fans should be very excited for what's in store for this offense.
Yeah, super excited. We just need Jacob Markstrom to be able to get past Edmonton. Connor McDavid just had his number and all of their superstars last season. Edmonton's added Jack Campbell as well. Any thoughts on the Edmonton Oilers coming into this season?
Well, I mean, I really like the Oilers. I probably don't like them as much as other people. I've got the Flames finishing at the top of the Pacific Division. The Oilers next at around 105, 106 points. Calgary finishing with about 109 points projected standings. But I obviously really like the Oilers. They showed a lot of people that they're more than they were in the past during that playoff run. Of course, they had a bit of an easy road in the first round. They had the LA Kings, no Drew Doughty, no Victor Arvidsson, and you have to take that into account. But they really dominated Calgary in the second round. I still think the Flames are a better team, at least in the regular season. I guess we'll reconvene on that notion if they match up again in the playoffs. Come that time. But I think you could look at what the Oilers have in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and then you look what players like Zach Hyman and Evander Kane brought to the team last year. They certainly look like the missing ingredients. I think the team lacks a little bit in their bottom six. They lack on the defensive side of the game, but you could see a player like Evan Bouchard, really emerge this year. He started through last year. And as far as Jack Campbell goes, I saw a lot of people when that signing was first announced, kind of knock him and call him, a younger version of Mike Smith or a young Mike Smith. And I don't understand the insult there. Mike Smith, when he was younger, was a pretty good goaltender. At the age of 30, he posted a .930 save percentage and led the Arizona Coyotes to the Stanley Cup final in his 30-year-old season. So, if Jack Campbell can be a young Mike Smith, the Oilers could be in pretty good shape this season.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. So the Calgary Flames come in here with a point total of 102.5. Are you looking at an over or under at that?
Yeah, it's an easy over for me. Obviously, 102.5 is a lot, but I've got the Flames projected to finish atop not only the Pacific Division standings, but finishing atop the league is in the cards for the Calgary Flames. In my opinion, I've got them projected with 109.7 points on average, winning 51 games on average, and finishing first more often than the Oilers.
Well, I really hope that comes true, Andy. I need my Calgary Flames to have a better season, make it through those playoffs this year. Let's talk the Atlantic Division. Who are you high on in this one?
It's hard not to be high on a lot of teams, obviously, in this division. It's just so stacked with the likes of Toronto, Florida, Tampa Bay, Boston. The list goes on, and then you've got teams like Ottawa and Detroit that have improved. But I guess I will start there. I'm not necessarily high on the Ottawa Senators. I've seen a lot of people talk about them as a team that they think will make the playoffs this season. And sure, it's in the cards, but I've got the Ottawa Senators making the playoffs about 1 out of every 5 times. So about a 20% chance. Their odds, I believe, of making the playoffs are around 2-1. So definitely no value on a wager like that. But, you just look at it. Who are they better than? Are they better than Toronto? Probably not. They're not better than Florida. They're not better than Tampa Bay. Are they better than Boston? Probably not. Are they better than Washington, Carolina, New York, Pittsburgh? The list goes on. It would be tough to argue that they're better than any of the 8 teams that made the playoffs last season. So I definitely see the Atlantic Division working out similar to how it did last year with Tampa Bay, Florida, Boston, and Toronto making the playoffs more often than any of the other teams. Ottawa has a chance. Detroit has a chance. Montreal, yeah, well, it's pretty ugly, especially with Price going down and he's out for the rest of the year. So I'm high on all 4 teams. I think the Bruins are a little bit undervalued. I could justify betting them at 11-1 to win the Atlantic Division, or betting them to make the playoffs at -160, which I think is a egregiously priced line. I mean, Boston probably will make the playoffs around 85% of the time, maybe upwards of that. And -160 definitely does not represent that kind of chance. So some good value there. I mean, it's not a really attractive line, and you're going to have some patience. Obviously, you got to wait that out all season, but you'd be hard pressed to find bigger edges than a team that's expected to make the playoffs almost 90% of the time being offered at -160.
Yeah, that is crazy, that number there. The juice does seem high, but not for this team just to make the playoffs. It seems like a good way to take it. Let's talk the Met division here. We've got so many solid teams in here. We know the Hurricanes come in strong, the Capitals, the Islander, the Blue Jackets were a surpriser last year. Rangers were a surpriser. What are you looking at for this division? Who do you think is going to be one of the stronger teams?
Yeah, I think it's Carolina once again. I think they would have a better chance of, let me say that there would be a bigger gap between the Hurricanes and every other team in the division if it wasn't for the fact that newly acquired Max Pacioretty suffered an injury. He's not going to suit up until the latter part of the season. So he doesn't really factor into the equation too much for the regular season. It's more of a playoff acquisition, I guess you could call it at this point. But the Hurricanes still look like the strongest team. They added Brett Burns. Of course, they swapped out Tony DeAngelo for Ian Cole. But they've got great goaltending. We've got to remember that Frederik Andersen went down before the playoffs. They still managed to get past the Bruins with Antti Ranta. Probably, would have gotten past the Rangers, let's be honest, if they had Andersen, because they took the Rangers to 7 games with their backup goaltender against Igor Shesterkin, who was on another level at that point. And it still was a very close series. So Carolina's right there. They've been a fringe contender for what seems like 4 or 5 years now, but they haven't made it past, or they haven't made it to the conference final since that first year that they really kind of emerged on the scene as a real legitimate contender. I think that was 2018-19 when they were swept by the Boston Bruins in the conference final. So Hurricanes definitely high on Carolina, but I don't think I'm much different than the market per se. And then obviously the Rangers are a team that kind of had a coming out party last year during their playoff run. It's going to be tough for Shesterkin to play at that level. I'm not saying he's not going to be great. He will be great, but all you have to do is look at the list of goaltenders who have performed at or near the level that Shesterkin performed at in 21-22, and you'll see that it isn't very often that any of those goaltenders show up in the list twice, right? It's tough to have a season like that. You can have a lot of really good seasons, but to have a top 5 all-time season more than once, there's a reason why those kinds of performances are so rare. So the Rangers, I think they're a stronger team overall than they were at the beginning of last season. But of course, it's just their projection is sort of fragile because Shesterkin is such a big part of it. If he was to go down with an injury, I wouldn't have much hope for this club here with somebody like Louis Domingue backing, filling that role in his absence. So I like the Washington Capitals, though. They're the team that sticks out to me. I think they've been kind of overlooked this offseason. They added Darcy Kemper. We know Tom Wilson is going to miss probably all of October and November, but he should be back in December, according to the team. We don't know if Nicholas Backstrom is going to play at all this season. There's been some positive reports lately, but, I've kind of just taken Backstrom out of the equation, and I still really like the Washington Capitals. They've been a top 10 offensive team for a decade, maybe longer. They were a great defensive team last year that kind of flew under the radar thanks to some pretty poor goaltending, but they've overhauled their goaltending department, and Darcy Kemper has been one of the best goaltenders over the last few seasons. And keep in mind, before he was in Colorado, he was on a really bad Arizona team. Yeah, so Kemper's actually a goaltender that I like to, as a flyer to win the Vezina Trophy at 25-1. His save percentage is on par with Sorokin and Vasilevsky. So he should be among the favorites, but he's not. And I like Washington to make the playoffs and to win the division at 7-1.
We know that when he was with Colorado, the defense for Colorado did such a great job of getting those block shots so that he didn't get as many shots on him. Do you think the Capitals will be able to do the same thing defensively so that he isn't taking a million shots a game?
You might see some more rubber on a per game basis, but I do think the Capitals do a really good job at limiting scoring chances and quality shots. They ranked among the top 10 teams in expected goals against last season. And like I said, I think that was something that really flew under the radar. And they added Dylan Strome, Connor Brown. They'll help fill some of those, some of the gap while Wilson is out. So I really like this team. Probably not going to hit their stride until midseason maybe. But we'll see. At 40-1, I think there are worse Stanley Cup bets to make. That's for sure.
There definitely is. Okay, October 7th, the regular season kicks off. You guys, you don't want to miss it. I will be back with Future Puckett with Joe's. I'm going to have you on again, Andy. But before we leave, can you tell everyone what you have happening at VSiN right now?
So yeah, once the season kicks off, it'll be the daily betting market report. I'll break things down every single day at VSiN.com. But leading up to the season, and I think this is important for a lot of people because futures bets are a lot of people's best bet. I think, like I said, you'd be hard pressed to find a bigger edge than you will on some of these markets. And the 2022-23 NHL betting guide at VSiN is just that. It's a guide to take around from sportsbook to sportsbook, shop around, find the best prices. You could use my projections to see maybe what the right side of a bet is. I've done pretty well over the last number of years, and my projections are some of the sharpest in the public forum. So it's great value. I don't know what the price is. They usually tell me that the night before. So it's definitely great value, though. I believe last year there was 25 best bets in the guide, and if a better placed $100 on all of them, they would have been up around $2,500 at the end. Not bad for something that I think cost $9.99. So yeah, check it out at VSiN.com. I believe it's going to be out either late tonight or early tomorrow.
Well, I can't wait. I'm going to have to get my hands on one of those, Andy, see what you've got for this upcoming season. I'm excited for it. I want to ask you one last question before you leave. Where did the love of hockey come from? I know you're a Canadian boy, but did you grow up playing?
Yeah, I mean, a pretty traditional Canadian upbringing, I guess. Just playing with my friends, road hockey, pond hockey. Obviously, had a little bit of a run in minor hockey that didn't last too long, or else I wouldn't be here. But no, it's just that love of the game. But really, I in the late 2010s, I kind of fell out of watching the sport on a super frequent basis, and it wasn't until the rise of hockey analytics that I really kind of became enamored with everything and got really interested in gambling and figuring out just ways to outsmart the markets, and it's been a fun ride. So now I'd say more than the love of hockey, it's the love of predicting hockey that kind of keeps me going. If all this was to go away, I probably wouldn't even watch any games anymore.
It's so much fun to watch a game when you have a bet on it. I totally believe that, Andy. Now, I know you are on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, anywhere else we can find you at The Digital Gambler?
Yeah, I mean, just you mentioned there, Twitter is kind of my main form, but I am trying out the Instagram and TikTok game. Not too great at it yet, but I think I'm going to figure it out.
You definitely will. Well, have a wonderful hockey season. I can't wait to have you back on. You guys, make sure you go give Andy a follow on all social media at The Digital Gambler, as well as VSiN at VSiN Live. Thank you, Andy.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Go Flames.
Go Flames.